How do you determine the price for your art? Should you be honored if someone commissions you for a work of art, even if the price they offer is very low? Should you even consider working for free? In this series, I answer these questions by providing you different perspectives, ways of looking at it. As you can see on the screen, you can also, if you want, participate in a drawing or warm-up drawing exercise while you listen. At the basis, you and I are artists. We just want to draw whatever we feel like, right? No deadlines, and each day we get to decide what we want to draw now and which tools we want to use today and on what we want to draw and when. But then come these pesky bills. We need to buy groceries, pay rent or mortgage, insurance, gas and electricity. We need to buy clothes. Some electric appliances sometimes break. We want health insurance, etc. In short, as we live, we have expenses. Now, we can get a job, but wouldn't it be fun if we could make money with our art? The thing you will find is that as soon as you work on assignments, it is actually less fun. Suddenly someone else is telling you what to do. Suddenly you have deadlines. An alternative is to make the art you want to make and to see if you can find a market for it. In either case, there is a minimum you need to charge for your art, and this minimum is determined by how much you need to make in order to pay your bills. It works like this. You add up all the expenses you typically have in your household every month. This amount is the minimum net income after tax which you need to make. It's just the money you need in order to survive. If you make less than that, you start spending your savings, and eventually, if you work for below that net amount for a long time, you can eventually not pay your bills, you cannot pay your rent, and you lose your home, etc. It's not a situation you want to be in. Now, you do have some control over this net amount. You can decide to live in a cheaper area where rents are lower, or you can decide to live in a smaller, cheaper house. You can decide to live more frugally, to buy cheaper food ingredients and to shop at cheaper stores and to generally spend less on things. But you will eventually hit a minimum net amount you need to make every month, or else you will go broke. From that net amount, you need to figure out the gross amount, the amount of money before tax you need to make in order to make that net amount. Don't forget tax. Tax is different in each country and so outside the scope of this video, but do try to find out for your situation. The next thing you need to determine is how many hours you can work on average in a month. We usually think in weeks, and it can be a 40-hour work week, but it can be less if you also have to take care of others and if you need to do part-time work. I would advise against planning work weeks longer than 40 hours. It is okay to work longer occasionally, but rest is an important part of your creative process, and it is a good idea to have a buffer there, to have the room to be able to work longer if a project requires it. Work out how many hours you can work every week, and then from that work out how many hours you can work per month, roughly. There are approximately 4.5 weeks in a month. Now you know the gross salary before taxes you need to make, and you know how many hours you can work to make that money. If you divide the salary amount by the number of hours, you arrive at the amount you need to make each hour. Let's illustrate with a basic example. Say you can work 40 hours per week, and let's take 4.5 week average length of a month. That means you can work around 180 hours per month. Now let's say your net expenses are, say, $2,000 a month, and let's say that you are in a bracket where you need to pay 1/3 in taxes. That means that you need to make $3,000 a month in order to be left with the $2,000 a month you need to cover for your expenses. So you need to make $3,000 a month, or in 180 hours, and this is an hourly salary of $16.67. That is the hourly salary you would need to survive. And it is an important thing to calculate for the following reasons. 1. It allows you to compare jobs that are priced in different ways. One job may publish your hourly wage, but another job might publish a monthly wage, and yet another assignment might give you a fixed budget for delivery. Calculating the amount you make each hour on each of these assignments allows you to compare gigs. The hourly rate might not be the only consideration, but it should be an important one. We would prefer to just make art we want to make, right? This is about making money with it, and so we should focus on that aspect. This is about making money. For one, you can compare it to the minimum wage. At this time, for example, the minimum wage in the United States is $7.25. That would not be nearly enough for the example mentioned earlier, where we needed to make at least almost $17 an hour. If we need to make that amount of money to finance our current lifestyle, we could not work for a minimum wage. You could also turn it around and design your lifestyle so that you could afford it while making a minimum wage, but you should never accept less than minimum wage. This is not hypothetical. I have seen many offers where writers ask artists to draw comics pages for them for insultingly low page rates. This is a pet peeve of mine. Page rates in comics get you to work for less than minimum wage because they assume that you can't do the math. If a page rate is, say, $75, that sounds great, right? Well, it takes you around 15 hours at least to make a good-looking comics page. They often say in comics a page a day, but those must be really long days. And if you get $75 for 15 hours of work, that means that you earn $5 an hour. That is around 1/3 less than minimum wage. After training for 10 years, learning perspective, learning anatomy, and being the key creator in a visual art form, you get paid less than an entry-level burger flipper. Comics creators will often say, "This is how we do things in our industry," but never fall for that. It is nonsense. They don't determine your price, you do. They only get to decide whether that is a price they are willing to pay for your work. If a potential customer has too little budget for the piece they are trying to commission, you can also lower the price by offering to make something for them that takes you less time. Less time means less money if you base it on an hourly rate. Another thing you can do when you calculate the hourly rate you make on a gig is to compare gigs. One gig may pay you $20 an hour, while another only pays you $10 an hour. That one that pays you only $5 an hour you scrap because it is less than minimum wage. That is the power of calculating your hourly rate. You get to compare gigs against each other and against the minimum wage. If you take a lower paid job while you could be doing a higher paid one, that is called an opportunity cost, and that might be worth it for you. Say you make $100 an hour as a banker, but you are bored out of your skull doing that. Say you can only make $15 an hour as an artist, but it makes you really happy. In that case, if you leave your cushy banking job to become an artist, you lose $85 an hour on income, and yet it might be worth it for you for the much more pleasant lifestyle it affords you. You get to draw every day. No more dull meetings in coolly lit grey meeting rooms. Price is not the only consideration, more on that later in the series, but it is an important consideration, and when you get an offer or try to price your work, you should calculate what you make per hour. If you know the price, then there is an implied hourly rate. For pricing, you should also include artist materials. Art tools and digital art program subscriptions do cost money. They tend to not determine the price though. You can buy the most beautiful thick 100% cotton hot pressed watercolor paper for $1 and then spend 15 hours painting it, which means you should get hundreds if not thousands of dollars for it. That $1 and the little paint you used pales in comparison. This way of calculating the price is called cost plus. You determine the costs you incur to make a work of art, and you can possibly add a percentage to it in order to arrive at a higher price. However, this is far from the only way to price your work, and in fact you should try to avoid pricing your work this way, but it is useful to do the calculation because it lays down a bare lower limit on what your level of pay you should accept for a sale. You should consider that lower paying customers are often also the hardest to deal with. They often want to squeeze any bit of value they can out of you. Surprisingly, better paying customers are often easier to deal with. There are better ways to determine your pricing, ways to get paid better while also getting better customers who are easier to deal with. You should try to find better customers and then fire your difficult customers. In the next episode, I will explain one method you can use to get a customer to pay you more. So subscribe if you don't want to miss that.